The document reportedly came to the attention of U.S. intelligence officials from Dutch intelligence. It included discussion of an email exchange between former DNC chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Leonard Bernardo, an official with Open Society Foundations run by George Soros. According to the Times, Wasserman Schultz allegedly told Bernardo that then Attorney General Loretta Lynch would not charge Clinton with a crime for having the private email server. Wasserman Schultz and Bernardo have both denied even being in contact with each other, suggesting the document was a fake attempt by the Russians to throw a wrench into the U.S. intelligence community. A spokeswoman for Bernardo sent me a statement today. I want to read part of it. Quote, Bernardo has never spoken with or corresponded with Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz in any fashion. The email mentioned is fictitious disinformation. The document.
Hey, welcome in, everybody. Thanks for joining me here at Courageous Media. Really appreciate everybody rolling up. Resnap in the house. Glenn and Shannon, Salty Life. We got more breaking news on the Russia hoax front. We've now got the media is lining up with their disinformation routines, their talking points squarely in hand, while DNI Tulsi Gabbard continues, along with members of Congress, specifically Grassley and this some of the annex from the Durham report, continue to put together the smoking gun that is the Russiagate hoax. We now kind of know the complete timeline. We're going to go through an email that was uncovered in all this that speaks directly to this last clip that we showed you with Leonard Bernardo saying, we've never had any communication with Wasserman Schultz. The email that everybody can see, it's a fake. It's Russian disinformation. I mean, this stuff, you can't make this stuff up. It's absolutely nuts. So we're going to dive into that amidst calls for criminal prosecution. Now, we already know that DNI Gabbard has referred members of Obama and the Obama administration for criminal prosecution. Meanwhile, CIA Director Ratcliffe has forwarded Brennan and Clapper and others for criminal prosecution. We also know that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino with the FBI have opened up their own investigation into the entire matter, as well as into FBI members who may have participated, aka Comey, Strzok, Page, and others. And we also know that Pam Bondi has put together what she calls a strike team to investigate this entire situation. We're going to dive into it today, and then we're going to get into more revelations from DNI Gabbard that are related and unrelated to the Russiagate hoax, but more CIA nefariousness. Let's dive right in. Thanks, everybody, for rolling up. Thanks for being here at Courageous Media. Please smash that like button, turn on the notifications. Even if you already have, go turn them on again because YouTube likes to turn them off. Let us know you're here in the comments. Really appreciate everybody rolling up. All right, let's dive into this email. So this is the email that was uncovered by the investigation. Now, this is from, as you can see, Leonard Bernardo. Now, for anybody who doesn't know, Leonard Bernardo is a member of the Soros organization. He's a Soros go-between. He routinely acts as an intermediary between George Soros and the Open Societies Foundation and members of government. So he was essentially embedded with the DNC, with the Clinton campaign, and was acting as go-between. Here you see an email to Wasserman Schultz. Leonard Bernardo to Wasserman Schultz. Notice the date, July of 2016. So smack dab in the final months of the 2016 presidential campaign. Hi, HRC, Hillary Rodham Clinton, approved Julia's idea about Trump and Russian hackers hampering U.S. elections. This should distract people from her own missing email, especially if the affair goes to the Olympic level. The point is making the Russian play a U.S. domestic issue. Say something like a critical infrastructure threat for the election to feel menace, since both POTUS and VPOTUS have acknowledged the fact IC would speed up searching for evidence that is regrettably still unavailable because there is no evidence. Now, so what we've got, to recap a little bit, not recap, but just kind of revisit a little bit from yesterday, what we found out in all of this latest document dump is that the supposed hack of Hillary's server, which was done by the Russians, essentially, that was their narrative. The hack was actually preceded by an actual Russian hack of emails of close confederates of the Clinton campaign, not the actual Clinton email server. But Russian agents were able to obtain access to emails from two of Clinton's advisors. And in those emails, they found stuff like this. Now, these two Russian agents were being surveilled themselves by Dutch intelligence from the Netherlands. It was the Dutch intelligence agency that found out that the Russians hacked the emails of these two Clinton advisors, got the emails. They transmitted that information to the Obama White House, to the DOJ, to the FBI. And what did the Obama White House and the DOJ and the FBI do with the information? Nothing. Not a thing. Did they open an investigation? No. Did they look at the fact that that two Russian agents were able to gain access to confidants of Hillary Clinton's emails? No. Did they look at the fact that when they uncovered those emails, there was clearly a coordinated, premeditated effort to spread disinformation against Donald Trump during the campaign? No, none of that. What did they do? They doubled down on the cover-up of the Hillary email scandal by taking the hacks, by taking the Russian play and making it a domestic issue, by getting FBI associated companies, namely CrowdStrike, to go on the record and say that Hillary's email was hacked. They think by the Russians. So here's where you get the link of Russian hacking to the election by CrowdStrike, an FBI-affiliated company, at the behest of Leonard Bernardo, Julia from the Clinton campaign, and HRC herself, saying, yes, let's make the Russian play a U.S. domestic issue. We'll call it critical infrastructure threat. That'll get POTUS and VPOTUS to basically talk about it. So you've got the pipeline. You've got the timeline now. You've got the Hillary email scandal is blowing up in the middle of summer 2016. Hillary is in serious trouble, not just from the optics of it all. No, she's in serious criminal threat. What she did was against the law, is against U.S. code. With the amount of times that she put confidential, top secret information at risk on a knowingly unsecured illegal email server, just the number of instances means she's looking at life in prison. Now, she doesn't want that, and she wants to win the presidency. So she's got to figure out a way to distance herself from the email scandal. Now, besides having willing accomplices in the media and in James Comey, the FBI director, who was willing to just basically sidestep the whole issue and pretend like it didn't happen, without pretending, basically go and say, oh, we investigated, but there's no there, and everybody just forget about it, which he did. Now, in addition to that, they go on the record, they go and they create the Fusion GPS Steele dossier. They then leak that to the media. They then leak using Leonard Bernardo and all of his surrogates. They leak the Russian email hacking. They basically take the whole Russia collusion and they mainstream it right before the election. So this is all out in the public now. You've got the media talking about, Russians trying to hack the elections. Suddenly, the Russians, who would have every reason to support Hillary Rodham Clinton, are suddenly, according to the media, supporting Donald Trump, even though that makes absolutely no sense. So you've got Hillary Rodham Clinton, because of her email scandal, goes and creates the fake dossier, goes and creates a disinformation campaign to link Russia to hacking the election, then link Russia to Donald Trump, and then willingly purvey that out using their friends in the deep state, Brennan, Clapper, Comey, as well as all of their willing sycophants in the US media. Now, this is going on all through the election, and this is clearly illegal. But Donald Trump wins the election. Now, if everybody remembers the famous tweet or the text from Strzok to Page, FBI agents, where Page says, "What's going on? What if he wins?" meaning Trump. And Strzok replies, "It doesn't matter. We have a backup plan." They were already working on what would happen if perchance Trump were to win. So they're using all of this to affect the election outcome. This is election rigging. This is fraud. This is treason. This is all sorts of things. This is conspiracy against the United States government, conspiracy against the rights of voters. There's so many crimes here. But then Trump goes and wins. Now, you would think, okay, they tried to distract from the email. It didn't work, but Clinton didn't get prosecuted, so just move on. The story might have died right there. But Peter Strzok's backup plan now comes full circle. Because Trump won, and because you had all this information out there, instead of just letting it die, now's where President Obama inserts himself and now becomes criminally liable for conspiracy. Because on the December 9th meeting, you have all this information. This information, mind you, was, I'll jump in, I'll insert one thing in the timeline. You've got Clinton email scandal, Clinton steal fake dossier, disinformation campaign, Fusion GPS, all laundered through Perkins Coie so that it would be hard to get testimony on it because it's covered by attorney-client privilege, then laundered to Brennan, Clapper, and others, then laundered through the media. But here's where the other crime takes place. Brennan and Clapper and their surrogates then take what they know is fake information and they go and obtain FISA warrants to spy on the Trump campaign, namely Carter Page and Papadopoulos. So now they have illegally obtained FISA warrants. We haven't found any information that the judges in the FISA court were complicit, although they might have been. But we absolutely have the data that Brennan, Clapper, Comey, and everybody involved in signing the FISA warrants and attesting to them is criminally liable for fraud, for perjury, for obstruction, for everything. So they've gotten FISA warrants. So they're spying on the Trump campaign, and then Trump goes and wins anyway. So that's when Obama, on December 9th, after having received the ICA, the Intelligence Community Assessment, that Russian hacking they were unable and frankly unwilling to try to hack the US election. There was no real Russian hacking of the US election. The only thing the Russians hacked were the emails for two Clinton confidants, two Clinton advisors. That's it. The actual hack of the Clinton server wasn't Russia. It was probably CrowdStrike itself or somebody on the inside. That's what we know from evidence dating back 8 years now, was that the hack of the Clinton email server was an inside job based on the IP addresses and everything involved. So Clinton hacks her own email server to link it to the Russians, to link it to Trump, to link it to all of their disinformation, to get FISA warrants, and all of it fails. Trump wins anyway. So now Obama, having received the ICA that said, Russia didn't possess the inclination or the technical aptitude to hack the elections, there's no there, said, no, I want a new ICA. I want you to manufacture an ICA that says they actually did hack it, that they wanted to. They did hack it. They hacked it for Trump, and they took it away from Hillary. And then we're going to launch a multi-year campaign to discredit Trump and destroy his presidency. Obama knowingly did that. That is knowing conspiracy, criminal conspiracy. So now you've got all the crimes here. You've got conspiracy basically against the U.S. government to defraud the U.S. government, to rob the U.S. government, conspiracy against rights of U.S. voters, of every single voter out there, conspiracy against the Trump campaign itself, conspiracy to rig an election, to basically, fraudulently, create election problems. Then you've got the FISA warrants. So you've got now criminal conspiracy to essentially entrap and defraud US citizens and put them in jail. Hence, Flynn, Bannon, and others who actually went to prison over this nonsense. And then you've got Obama basically trying to destroy the Trump presidency after the fact. All of this gets you multiple crimes, but absolutely leads into seditious conspiracy or treasonous conspiracy. And then you wrap the whole thing up with RICO, because this was an ongoing criminal operation to commit fraud against the US government, fraud against the US taxpayer, deprive people of their rights, and potentially treason and sedition. This goes all the way up now to the raid on Mar-a-Lago, where Mar-a-Lago was raided to get these documents because they figured Trump had them at Mar-a-Lago. Now, this all goes back to this email right here, where we now know that Soros was involved with Clinton from the beginning. That was the impetus of this. That was the genesis of this entire thing back in July of 2016. That leads all the way to the December 9th meeting, which leads all the way to 2 years later when the Russia hoax investigation finally concludes with no there there, and then on into 2021 in the raid on Mar-a-Lago. So this is absolutely bombshell stuff. You've now got smoking gun evidence against Clinton, against Soros. Now, the question becomes, will anyone actually see justice for this? Matt Gaetz had a very, very telling thing on his show that I want to get into. Before we do that, just want to shout out to everybody who is here. Welcome, Resnap, Glenn and Shannon, Nick, Burgundy is in the house, Lisa 617, Chrissy Cat. Really, really appreciate everybody being here. Please, everybody, smash that like button for me. Hit that thumbs up. Turn on the notifications. If you like the content, please share Courageous Media with everybody that you know. All right, let's dive into Matt Gaetz, who I really wish he was our Attorney General, but he is not, unfortunately. But here we dive into Matt Gaetz talking about this very effect right here.
All of this proves criminal intent. The most common question we get is whether this will result in criminal charges. DNI Tulsi Gabbard told us it was a criminal conspiracy.
This Obama-led intelligence community assessment was a contrived document that was knowingly made using fake intelligence or substandard intelligence. They would use this foundational document for everything that came after for the following 4 years. The Mueller investigation, what was essentially a years-long coup against President Trump with the smears and the attacks, the FBI raids, the 2 congressional impeachments. The list goes on. And so this action needs to be seen within the context of what happened before and what came after to recognize the conspiracy that exists.
Just there, Tulsi said what I was saying back in 2018 when the media was calling me crazy. Here, Chris Cuomo accused me of using dirty words to fight back against the Obama-ordered, Hillary-approved coup attempt.
You used the word spying. Now, you know that's a dirty word in the intelligence community. It suggests something nefarious, something wrong. And you know that Trey Gowdy and Speaker Ryan looked into what was offered up by the community, by the DOJ about what was done, and they said there was no spying.
And how is Chris Cuomo taking today's news that everything he espoused on television merely showed him to be a useful idiot for the deep state?
Wow, I'm wrong a lot. I've been wrong about political issues. I've been wrong about people. I've been wrong about myself. I've been wrong about my responsibilities. I've been wrong about my opinions, my tastes, my choices. I've been wrong.
The top question.
Now, Cuomo might actually be having a moment of mental clarity, of real, honest to goodness soul searching there, because the media's problem in this whole Russia collusion was not a mistake of operations. It wasn't an oops, we got it wrong. Their failing was moral, not factual. The problem was it was a moral failing. They were in on the fix from the get-go. They didn't want to look into any other options. They hated Trump. They wanted Trump to be guilty. All they needed was the slightest nudge from someone on the inside, someone on the deep state, and they ran with it. They could have found out all this information 10 years ago. They could have dug. but they didn't want to dig.
We've received from viewers is this: will anyone actually go to jail?
That's the question.
We got a clue on this program from former House Intelligence Chairman Devin Nunes. Listen to him tell us what to pay attention to.
Of this giant hoax was the raid at Mar-a-Lago. And I think that could hold some keys, whatever evidence can be found there and how it relates to all of this, which is essentially just a get Trump hoax all in one.
I didn't know it at the time, but he gave us a key hint. We know that some of the documents Trump had at Mar-a-Lago pertain to the origins of the Russia hoax. What if the reason the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago was to facilitate a cover-up? What if the FBI knew that their officials or former officials broke the law and they needed to get the evidence out of Trump's possession? If that were true, and Devin Nunes' response is illuminating, then the raid of Mar-a-Lago would be a predicate criminal act in furtherance of the broader seditious conspiracy, a serious federal crime. In this
Exactly. You've got predicate criminal acts that undergird a RICO case for criminal seditious conspiracy, treasonous conspiracy, conspiracy to commit treason. Put whatever you want on there. And then you go back to the very beginning with all of the fake information, then the perjurious statements made by Brennan, Clapper, everybody else in front of Congress and other places where they perjured themselves. You've got ongoing, multiple, layered criminal acts that everybody should be prosecuted for on each individual act, but then you roll it up into a broader conspiracy charge and then ultimately into a giant RICO statute. This thing, there should be multiple people going to prison. The problem is, Matt Gaetz asked the right question. Will anybody ever go to prison? If the rhinos, if the deep state elitist uniparty wackos have their way, the answer is no. Check this out from Trey Gowdy, who I think might be on the other side of that fence.
Same pointed questions. Trey?
Yeah, and unfortunately for Brennan, the same allergy to the truth that he has now. He is allergic to the truth. He lied in that part of his testimony, and he lied about whether or not the dossier was used in court filings. The statute's wrong, but to Leslie's point, handcuffs are not the only way we mete out accountability in this culture. There's shame, there's history. It's not just prison. There are other ways we mete out accountability, and the fact that somebody's not wearing handcuffs does not, to me, think that what they did is okay, because it wasn't.
No, it doesn't mean what they did is okay. But unless there is criminal accountability, the American people will never trust the government again. As Jamie, as you said it, if the big players in this treasonous conspiracy do not go to prison, I don't want to hear another politician say anything about no one's above the law. Exactly. There need to be dozens of people going to prison for this. And thankfully, I believe that's what Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Tulsi Gabbard, Pam Bondi, and Ratcliffe have in mind. I believe now this is going to be a very slow turning justice system. I think if they do it, they've got to do it right. They've got to dot every I, cross every T. They have got to put together such a rock solid case. And because the raid was in Mar-a-Lago, you use that as one of the predicate criminal acts and you convene this case in the Southern District of Florida. Federal court, Southern District of Florida. You get it away from DC, you get it away from New York, and you impanel that court with jurors who will actually uphold the law, and we might have a chance. Now, that's story number one for today. The other story is related to it, kind of. But that is the other revelation that we had from Tulsi Gabbard this week. I'm going to play a clip of Tulsi Gabbard in an interview she did with Benny Johnson, but it's absolutely amazing stuff. Before we get into that, please like, comment, and subscribe. Share Courageous Media with everybody that you know. Help us get on the other side of this YouTube algorithm. We really appreciate your support. Every time you like, every time you comment, it affects the algorithm, and that's what we need. So please do that. And if you're willing to be one of our core people, we'd love to have you just keep your notifications on, and whenever we drop new content, run out there, watch it, like it, comment on it, share it. Really appreciate you doing that. And if you like it, please consider joining us as a member of Courageous Army. You can hit that join button right there on YouTube. Now, let's dive into our next story, basically about Operation Mockingbird. Check this out.
Far enough to be able to put pro-lifers in jail whenever they want.
Yeah.
You think that's on the agenda?
You can kind of put anyone in jail if you know what to do.
How?
You set them up. You create the situation to where they have no choice but to act on their impulse. And once they act on that impulse, then we call that entrapment. It's a fine line.
Does the Bureau practice entrapment a lot?
We get really close.
Not officially?
No. We get as close as we can. We get as close as we can to it without doing it.
So they can entrap some of these pro-lifers into doing things that they don't...
Depending, yeah. We call it a nudge.
A nudge.
A nudge. Sometimes you just gotta give them a quick little, just to see what happens, right?
And how does that happen?
You put a post out there, or you have someone fake profile say something that triggers, that we know is going to trigger them, right? Like, we already know your history. If we're to that point, we already know everything about it. So we're like, oh, this will piss them off.
Oh.
Sometimes you light the fuse and just wait for it to follow, right?
Like a rally. Like a, so when a rally happens, that's sometimes the Bureau behind it?
Yeah, sometimes. Nothing like putting out a fake social media thing to like really get people mad. Post fake news. Sometimes it's not fake. It's embellished a little bit.
Who would be like a big influencer that you're after? You're like a, I don't know, like I don't even know these names. Like a Fox News person or like a Tucker Carlson or like.
Oh, I'm sure he's on the radar, right? You always want the biggest and loudest. Like that, what was his name? The one that said Sandy Hook didn't happen.
Alex Jones.
Yeah, so we were after him.
You are? Are you still after him?
Yeah.
Why?
Because he's broke. He got found guilty and had to pay like $100 million.
So why were you after him?
We're not anymore.
Just to get the money from him?
Yeah.
Was that court case used? Was that a CIA?
Sure it was.
Sure it was. That was an agency thing. Hey, well, okay. So we got to talk about Operation Mockingbird. Now, Tulsi Gabbard was on the Benny Johnson show, and we're going to dive into that interview, a snippet of it, where she talks about the fact that she has found out now that Operation Mockingbird, which dates back to the 70s, is still going on today. For those of you who don't know what Operation Mockingbird is, Operation Mockingbird is essentially the ongoing CIA op to essentially create constant disinformation in the media, to create the narratives, the stories, the storylines that they want. Operation Mockingbird was designed to affect public opinion and political direction in foreign countries. However, because remember, the CIA was never allowed to operate domestically, but all that got thrown overboard with things like the Patriot Act and other brilliant pieces of Republican, call it uniparty legislation, which has opened the door for the active espionage against U.S. citizens. Now, Operation Mockingbird, although it was back then too, it was just more clandestine, is actively used to create state-sponsored narratives in the media. Everything from the selective feeding of stories to media sycophants, to the embedding of actual CIA operatives in media and journalism roles, to the active persecution and prosecution of dissenting voices like Tucker Carlson, like Alex Jones. As the undercover officer said, hey, was that a CIA thing? Yes, it was. Going after Alex Jones was a CIA thing. Now, the person that the undercover operative is videoing is Gavin O'Blennis. He's a former FBI agent and now a contracting officer with CIA. So he knows all the ins and outs. And so now you've got confirmation that Mockingjay, I call it Mockingjay, I'm going back to Operation Mockingbird. This is not Hunger Games, not yet. Operation Mockingbird is still in effect. Check this out from Tulsi Gabbard.
The media being used as a propaganda mechanism. We saw it flatly. I mean, I think it's the smoking gun, quite frankly, of the Obamagate narrative and the Russiagate narrative, that it was so baked in that the New York Times and Washington Post went and ran with it. Some would say that that's part of Operation Mockingbird. Some would say that that's part of what we learned in the Church Committee, that the intel agencies were using media outlets as their mouthpieces, and that those mouthpieces would parrot the official narrative. And I wanted to ask you, is this operation still going on? Are you aware of the intel agencies working directly with media outlets in order to push prescribed narratives that may or may not be true?
It's something that we've already had to deal with, Benny, within this administration, where there are people within the intelligence community who believe that their will is more important than the will of the American people, and will weaponize intelligence by leaking it to their friends within the mainstream media with the intent of undermining President Trump's agenda. It is not one that he hasn't already talked about in every rally and town hall that he did throughout the campaign. I don't even know how many there were, but President Trump is enacting the very thing he promised the American people he would do in this election. So people in the intelligence community, they may agree, they may disagree. That's not the point here.
So you've got Operation Mockingbird still ongoing. Realize that Operation Mockingbird, I say, that this story is somewhat related to our previous one, was front and center in the entire Russiagate hoax. Because when the Clinton campaign and their willing accomplices in the CIA and the FBI, when they wanted to cook this story up, they went straight to their media mouthpieces. They fed the story to their media mouthpieces. And so that story got propagated throughout the mainstream media. There was nowhere you could go that you did not hear that story. It was touted as truth. And that's how they ran the wrap-up smear campaign to perfection against Trump and against Trump's allies.
As intelligence professionals, as people who work in the national security space, in the intelligence community, they are required to fulfill their mandate to their oath to the Constitution of the United States and to the President of the United States, who was duly elected by the American people. Those who leak intelligence to their friends in the mainstream media with the intent of undermining the president who was elected by the American people. None of these intelligence professionals were. They are subverting the will of the people and therefore undermining the Constitution.
It's wild that you're still having to deal with that. Call it what you will. But Operation Mockingbird, just incredible that they were just out with it, that they were using the media as government organs to push propaganda, and it's still happening today.
This is why what we're doing is so important, Benny,
Yes.
and this is why President Trump's mandate in this is really critical, is by exposing the truth, by exposing the bad actors within the intelligence community and in the political space who are weaponizing intelligence to advance their own political interests, is so important to be able to turn the light on in places that have been dark for far too long, expose the truth, and drive accountability. That's the only way that we can actually shift this and begin the work to try to restore trust in the intelligence community.
And that accountability needs to be fourfold, needs to be fully 360. You need to have shaming. You need to have social accountability. These people need to lose their jobs and their security clearances. They need to be stripped of their wealth, and they need to be put in prison. It needs to end with criminal accountability. Now, just a little example of, the Operation Mockingbird in action. For those of you who remember the great Rush Limbaugh used to say that the media operated on Democrat talking points, that they all got the Democrat talking points, the drive-by media. Well, now that we know about Operation Mockingbird, it becomes far more nefarious than that. It's not just a bunch of left fully left, media people saying, okay, let's all kind of, say the same thing. Let's go down the same road. It's not groupthink. It's not they all kind of got there. No, this is actual government, deep state control of media outlets to say the same thing, to parrot the same narrative. Check this out.
Sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Sharing of biased and
false news has become...
All right, so I want to play now. That's just amazing. When they're all basically saying the same thing, even the same words. I want to play you another clip, this from The Benny Show, which gives you just another flavor of it. It's absolutely amazing. Check this out. This is Operation Mockingbird in action.
Same thing. You can put compilations together like this, and it really creeps you out.
Russian collusion.
Trump, Russian sort of collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible collusion. Trump, Russian, metal collusion. Trump, Russia, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, potentially collusion.
Trump, Russia, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, collusion. Trump, Russia, Russian collusion. Trump, Russia, possible collusion.
Russia hacked our election.
Here comes a big change. Because all of a sudden, Trump, Russian, possible collusion, Russian, collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible collusion. Trump, Russians, collusion.
Collusion with the Russians. Trump, Russia, possible collusion. Trump, Russia, possible collusion.
And you
collusion.
I mean, it's wild. It's wild just how deep the deep state tentacles through Operation Mockingbird go throughout the media and the political establishment. Now, one more little piece of evidence. Tucker Carlson was talking about this very fact, that he had been approached by people on this very topic. Check this out, and then we'll end today's show.
Intel agencies have a big effect on what is broadcast on television and what you see on Facebook and Google as well. I mean, they're all up and down Facebook and Google, as I'm sure you know. And, there are a lot of anchors who, including people I know well and have worked with at different networks. I'm thinking of one in particular, a national security reporter, who was just a mouthpiece for the Pentagon and the CIA and is knowingly telling lies on their behalf. That's very, very common, very common. And I can think of a number of people at CNN who I know for a fact are doing that exact thing.
That's an example of either people who are in the pay of the intelligence services to be a mouthpiece, or they could also be actual members of the CIA embedded in media establishments.
And so, I mean, they're reading government propaganda from the intel agencies knowingly. And I'm sure they've got some internal rationale that allows them to get up in the morning and face themselves despite having done something that dishonest. But I'm just telling you, bottom line, I know that is true. I'm not speculating at all. And in particular on the national security stuff, there are very well-known national security reporters, and I'm thinking of one female national security reporter in particular, who just reads lies from the national security state. And it's wildly frustrating. And it would just make me mad. I mean, even if I don't agree with the lies, okay, but even if I did agree with the lies, I would be offended because they're lies. They're lies. Like when CIA and the Pentagon were claiming that Bashar al-Assad used poison gas against his own people. Okay, there was no evidence that was true. I mean, maybe it was true. There was no evidence it was true. None. Zero. And I called them out, and they could not provide any evidence. And yet every national security, and it was a big deal. I mean, we killed a lot of people in response. We sent in missiles and killed a lot of people. We took human life in response to that claim. And it was, as far as I can tell, intel.
So the Russia collusion hoax was a gigantic criminal conspiracy. And Operation Mockingbird, which was an integral part of that treasonous, seditious conspiracy, is still alive and well. Thank God for people like DNI Tulsi Gabbard who are outing all this stuff, who are making the American people fully aware of everything that's been going on. Now let's A, hope and pray that we get real accountability, but let's act. Courageous Army, please call your congressman, call your senator, demand that there be real accountability for this stuff. And let's put the pressure on Pam Bondi and the DOJ to make sure that indictments and criminal charges are brought and that people are perp walked out of their home into court, hopefully in the Southern District of Florida Federal Court. What say you? Let me know in the comments. Thanks everybody for rolling up. Really appreciate everybody being here. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share Courageous Media. And if you'd like so, please join us as a member of the Courageous Army. Remember that God is good and he is sovereign. Until I catch you next time, have a great weekend.